Warning. You're about to enter the arena and join the battle to save America with your host, Sean Parnell.
Good evening, America. Welcome to Battleground Live. This is the show where we kick ass and we take names and we lock horns with the radical left. We never quit. We never surrender. From sea to shining sea and everybody in between. Welcome, Patriots, on this glorious Thursday. The week is flying by. I'm super excited to tell you that I've got Brian Lupo on deck today. He's come on, I think, one, maybe two times before. He's got his own podcast. He's got a bunch of different podcasts. This guy, let me just tell you, he's a former United States Marine, but few people have done more to help imprisoned January 6ers than Brian. He's got a show that he basically dedicated to, called, I think, Inside January 6th, that just talks about each of the individual political prisoners and just advocating for them. And I really appreciate that because, we live in the greatest country on the face of the planet. We shouldn't have political prisoners here. So we're going to talk about some of the horrific treatment of the January 6th prisoners here pretty soon with Brian. But also there's this crazy case. He's a January 6er as well. He hasn't been pardoned yet, of a guy, a former Green Beret named Master Sergeant Jeremy Brown. You got to hear about this. And when you do, make sure you call your senator and call your congressman and demand his release, demand a pardon. Because really, we got to free every January 6er out there. As far as I'm concerned, they were all victims of political persecution and targeted unjustly by the Biden Department of Justice. We got to do what we can to get these folks out. But that in a second. I want to thank Dan Nunn and Nunchucks for rating this stream. You all have become regulars here on Battleground Live and rating Battleground Live, and we thank you for that, my friend. To the battle crew, folks who are listening and watching, especially the OGs who have been with us since the very, very beginning. Make sure you go follow, subscribe to Dan's show, The Nunn Report. He's got a great show. In fact, I've heard some awesome feedback from members of the battle crew who also think that Dan has a great show. So definitely go follow, subscribe. We've got to support independent media where we can, because independent media is the future. Let me tell you, if you didn't learn that on the inauguration of President Trump, I don't know what it's going to take, because the impressions, when you combine them on X and then YouTube and then Rumble, they were in the billions of people that were just watching independent media on their own. They've completely cut the cable. They're not watching, Fox News is by far the dominant conservative cable news outlet out there, but everybody else is just failing on all fronts. And that's because of independent media. Dan Nunn is one of those people. We should support him. Okay, so much to talk about today before we get to Brian. But Trump, he's been he's working at Trump Force speed, right? The guy never takes a break. He's been at it for 72 hours now. And again, he's done more in 3 or 4 days as president than Biden has done in 4 years. And today President Trump pardoned pro-lifers. So he granted an executive grant of clemency that pardoned 23 pro-life protesters, just signed in the Oval Office today. And just so you're tracking, these people, the Biden Department of Justice went after these people for the crime of singing hymns and praying in front of a Nashville abortion clinic. These pro-lifers who sang and prayed in front of an abortion clinic were imprisoned by the Biden regime. No, that's not hyperbole. Yes, that's 100% true. Shouldn't happen in America. Well, Trump just granted them all clemency. Among the people that the Biden's Department of Justice prosecuted for protesting abortion. Seriously. And by the way, regardless, I'm pro-life, right? But regardless of where you are in the issue, we talked about this before. It's a nuanced and complicated issue for a lot of people. Okay. We understand that, but regardless of how you feel about the life issue, this shouldn't happen in America. You have Black Lives Matter and Antifa rampage across the country for damn near a year, caused billions of dollars of damage. They killed people and injured people, for God's sake, and most of those people were let off scot-free, no charges at all, especially in those heavily Democrat cities, Soros-funded DAs. But among the people that were prosecuted for this and thrown in prison, Ava Edel, an 89-year-old Holocaust survivor. The Biden Department of Justice prosecuted an 89-year-old Holocaust survivor? Yes. Bevelyn Williams, a young mother who was sentenced to nearly 4 years in jail. Absolutely insane. How about Fidelis Mosinski, a Franciscan friar who received 6 months in jail, and Paul Vaughn, a father of 11. Folks, this is just sickening behavior of the Biden Department of Justice. And I have to say, I'm very, very glad that President Trump took immediate action to grant clemency to these folks, because even spending 1 day in prison for something like this is just far too much. Okay, so let's get to the other piece of huge breaking news. President Trump on the campaign trail. I know many of you all watched his rallies, paid attention to what he said. But this was the promise that he made us on the campaign trail. Listen.
First step toward restoring transparency and accountability to government, we will also reverse the overclassification of government documents. And in the coming days, we are going to make public remaining records relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and other topics of great public interest. It's all going to be released, Uncle Sam.
So what's crazy, day 4 in office, Trump declassified the JFK files. Trump declassified the RFK files. Trump declassified the Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, this is the level of transparency that we are getting from this president is unlike anything that I've ever seen, Democrat or Republican. And by the way, yes, Trump is a Republican. But Trump is in a world of his own. He's in a universe in and of himself. Like, he owns the space that he's in. There will never be anyone else like this guy. And again, we should be grateful for the level of transparency that we're getting here. And by the way, I think those in the intel community would say, well, we can't declassify the JFK files, Martin Luther King, RFK, because one, this is what they would say, not what I'm saying. They would say, oh, it presents a national security risk. Okay. 2, the CIA or somebody else was implicated, here in the United States, a U.S. institution was implicated. Or 3, somebody is still alive who was associated with it. I'm not saying directly involved in it, but a family member is still alive of the people who were involved in it. And that would just create a great hassle for them. Of course, I mean, maybe hassle's not the right word. Maybe they'd be harassed. I don't know. That's what people like Pompeo and the intel operatives would say. But I completely think that's total bullshit. I'm sorry. If our intel agencies had anything to do with any of these assassinations, the American people have a right to know. Absolutely, positively, full stop. We have a right to know if our intel agencies have been weaponized against us. Like Martin Luther King, for example, not even talking about JFK and RFK. Let's talk about Martin Luther King. The FBI sent him a blackmail suicide letter. I mean, this is confirmed. Like, just look it up. Do some research on your own. The FBI sent an anonymous letter to Martin Luther King Jr. saying that we have evidence of you cheating on your wife and doing terrible things. You should kill yourself. Or because we have if you don't do that, we're going to release all this stuff. I swear to God, look it up for yourself. Do some research on your own. But this is the kind of stuff our intel agencies have been up to for a very long time. And look, I'm not disparaging everybody that works at those agencies. I'm not. I mean, our friend Brian Dean Wright worked at the CIA for a long time. I love that guy. I trust that guy. He's one of the good ones. There are good ones at the CIA and good ones at the FBI as well. But we've got to do something to bring these institutions to heel. And so just prior to going live on this show, Donald Trump Jr. put out something that, hey, the files have been officially declassified by the CIA. which I think is a good thing. We should love the level of transparency that we're getting already in the Trump administration. And by the way, Trump 2.0 is far more effective than Trump 1.0. We talked about this. It has nothing to do with Trump the man. Trump the man has remained unchanged, but he's got, and he would say this too, a hell of a lot more experience now, and he understands the intricacies of Washington, understands where the threats in the swamp are. Not all of them, but most of them. And he's far better suited today to navigate those trials than he was 4 years ago. And again, had the Democrats not rigged and stolen the 2020 election, Trump would be on his way out and the Democrats would have controlled the House and the Senate. But instead, they rigged an election and now they got the Republicans in complete control. So that brings me to the games that the Democrats are playing with the Trump's cabinet nominees. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Trump won an historic mandate. He won an electoral college landslide. He won the freaking popular vote. And damn it, I am glad for that, because now we don't have to listen to those moron Dems say, well, Trump didn't win the popular vote, and that's why we have to get rid of the electoral college, and that's why you don't have a mandate. Well, he won state governments all across the country. We've got control of the U.S. Supreme Court. So Trump has never been more powerful and more popular than he is right now, with a 53% approval rating released just prior to the show on Rasmussen, 53 favorable, 40 unfave. So the guy has never been more powerful. But if you looked in the U.S. Senate, we have a 53-47 majority. You'd think that Trump didn't win an historic mandate. You look at what's happening with John Radcliffe, and not just John Radcliffe or Pete Hegseth, but all of Trump's cabinet picks. The Dems are using every procedural mechanism that they have at their disposal to delay this vote as long as humanly possible, which is essentially, to me, the same as being an election denier. Senate has the role of advise and consent. That does not mean obstruct. Both Democrats and Republicans both agree that a president is entitled to their cabinet. I mean, unless there's something insane or glaring, a reason why somebody should not have been voted for, the Senate really shouldn't. I mean, they should just consent. In fact, one can make the argument about guys like Pete Buttigieg. The only thing the guy has ever run in his entire life is a small town in Indiana, and he bankrupted. Or how about Alejandro Mayorkas, who facilitated the illegal invasion of this country to the tune of 10 plus million illegal alien invaders, completely decimated the country? Or how about Lloyd Austin, who disappeared for 2 weeks, actually 4 weeks, and didn't tell the commander in chief, yet somehow Trump's nominees are going to be worse than these catastrophes? Give me a break. So, quick update on that front. Radcliffe was confirmed today as CIA director in a 74-25 vote. So this gives President Trump, a trusted advisor at the CIA. That's a good thing, because the CIA 100% kept critical intelligence from President Trump in his first term. That cannot happen again. And that brings me to Pete Hegseth. So Pete Hegseth has been smeared relentlessly in the media, definitely been given the Kavanaugh treatment, no doubt about it. This was Schumer on the Senate floor just today.
We are being tasked to trust our armed forces to a man with a history of erratic behavior. One of the kindest words that might be used to describe Mr. Hegseth is erratic. And that's a quality you don't want as head of DOD. He has a history of excessive drinking, of alleged domestic abuse, and zero experience leading a large organization of any kind. The new allegations that came out yesterday are even more troubling. And people say, well, how do we know they're true? Well, first, the person who did it has no strike against her. But second, it just corroborates in an even worse way of what we've known about Hegseth in the past. He has a clear problem of judgment, as you've seen by his statements. It's like saying your heart surgeon has twitchy hands, but I'll let him do surgery on me. No one would do that. How on earth can America entrust our safety and security to a man who has allegedly shown up to work and other events inebriated? What if he shows up inebriated during a crisis? What's going to happen? This is dangerous.
This is such bullshit. I can barely contain myself. I'm sitting there laughing behind the scenes as I play that sound. That guy is just a straight up moron. I can't mince words. I mean, every single one of those senators has shown up on the Senate floor drunk to make a vote. And I'm not saying that it's acceptable to do that. I'm just saying it makes them hypocrites of the highest order. By the way, again, Lloyd Austin, who a lot of Republicans voted for, by the way, has been a disaster in every way, shape, or form. Like oversaw the disastrous surrender of Afghanistan, left billions of dollars of American weaponry in Afghanistan, 13 servicemen and women killed during that surrender, disappeared, went AWOL, was never held accountable. Yet somehow Pete Hegseth is going to be worse than this guy. And so we found out today that Lisa Murkowski of Alaska is going to be a no on Pete Hegseth. I find that pathetic and ridiculous on a lot of levels. Alaska went for Trump 54-41. And so on some level, a deep red state like that should have representation that actually reflects their values. And this has been a problem with the Republican Party. And yeah, I'm not afraid to look in the mirror. In some cases, we have a primary problem, although not in Alaska, because Lisa Murkowski rigged it with her allies through ranked choice voting. She couldn't win a primary in Alaska. In fact, she lost. So she had to go with ranked choice voting. That's the only reason why she's a sitting senator from Alaska right now. But Lisa Murkowski also says, so she's not voting for Pete Hegseth, but she also voted against Brett Kavanaugh because she didn't approve of his temperament. There's never been a clearer case of political assassination than what they did to Brett Kavanaugh. Almost every single person who watched that, even some of my liberal friends, were saying to me, okay, what they're doing to Brett Kavanaugh is just effed up. They said that Brett Kavanaugh was the leader of a gang rapist ring. And if he didn't keep his diaries, his journal entries going all the way back to 7th grade, I think he might have been in trouble, but he shouldn't have been. Again, it just speaks to the issues that we have here in the Republican Party. If you allow anonymous false accusations to sway your vote, and you show you're a political opponent that you could possibly be susceptible to that, then they're just going to do it over and over and over again. And that's exactly what the Democrats have done with almost every effective America First conservative there is, whether it's Brett Kavanaugh and now Pete Hegseth, to Donald Trump himself. Critical people that are around Donald Trump, his most steadfast and staunch allies, have all received the same treatment. And it's because of people like Lisa Murkowski who allow those fake false allegations to sway her vote. And it's just sickening to me on so many levels. Because Murkowski didn't have those same concerns about Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she didn't even know what a woman was. Yet she sits on the United States Supreme Court. So anyway, the cloture vote for Pete Hegseth was today. Now, cloture is basically saying, okay, Pete advanced out of the Armed Services Committee. We've debated him enough, so we're gonna vote in cloture to close those debates and allow for 30 more hours, and then a full vote on the Senate floor for confirmation, which requires a simple majority. So the cloture vote is similar to the filibuster. In normal circumstances, it would require 60 votes to break a cloture vote. But the Democrats destroyed the filibuster and removed the 60 vote threshold. So now it just requires a simple majority, which Pete had 51-49. So you can expect a full Senate vote tomorrow on Pete Hegseth around 9 p.m. There were 2 Republicans who voted no on cloture. Collins of Maine and Murkowski of Alaska. Mitch McConnell voted to advance. So if things hold out and remains 51-49, J.D. Vance won't be needed to break a tie. So keep your fingers crossed, say a prayer, because I think Pete Hegseth needs to be a line in the sand. Okay, I've got Brian in on deck. He's waited patiently. I will shut up because I don't want to waste any more time. Let me tell you very quickly about the wellness company, and then we'll get right to Brian to talk about all this crazy January 6th stuff. Everyone knows the next medical crisis is just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of a pandemic or something much more mundane like a tick bite. You and your family need to be prepared, and that's where the wellness company comes in. The Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits like this one are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you and your family safe and healthy. This is the medical emergency kit. I love it. Like, they got all these medications right in here with a little handy instruction guidebook so you learn how to take them. They've also got the contagion kit, the first aid kit, the travel kit. These prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications, from anthrax to tick bites, from COVID to the bird flu, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas. The Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. So rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics, antifungals on hand to help you and your family in an emergency. Remember, folks, it's not about being paranoid. It's about being prepared. All you have to do is go to www.twc.health/battleground. So twc.health/battleground today and order TWC Health/battleground. Use the promo code battleground and you will save 10%. Okay. Without further ado, let me bring my buddy on, Brian Lupo. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, brother. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. As you can tell, I'm pretty fired up about all the bullshit that the Republicans pull throughout this process. Although I think it has gotten better than Trump's first term. Trump's first term was like a lot of the Republicans in Senate went out of their way to knife him and his agenda in the back. But it looks like this time he's on much stronger footing, but you still have to deal with people like Lisa Murkowski and Suzanne Collins, who side with the Democrats more often than not. And it just frustrates the hell out of me, man.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's good to see the cloture go through. And then tomorrow, hopefully we get the confirmation. The Samantha Hegseth abuse story that just came out. What an absolute joke. The audacity of the mainstream media to run this. You know, Sean, they had run a story a week earlier about something that they alleged Donald Trump had said, and that's the headline. Donald Trump says, you know, whatever. You get into the article, and like 4 paragraphs down, it's like a source. It starts out, a source says Donald Trump says this, this, and this, and then like 4 or 5 paragraphs buried in the article. But Donald Trump himself has denied that he ever said this or that he's going to do that. And it's like the same thing here. I covered this on my show the other day, 9 paragraphs in before they get to the fact that Samantha Hegseth, the alleged victim in this abuse, flat out denies it ever happened and said that's absolutely insane. And it's crazy, man.
I mean, it is. It's ridiculous. And to have Republicans have their votes swayed by this, to me, it does a disservice to people who have actually been victims of domestic violence, right? You have these people that come out that falsely accuse people for just politics, for just political gain. I've known Pete Hegseth for 10 years. I worked very, very closely with him. Did he and I go out to a bar every now and again and have a drink? Absolutely. We were both in the infantry. That's how the entire business model of the VFW was built, on dudes doing just that, you know? So, but the idea that he's erratic, I mean, the idea that he's some crazy drunkard passing out, I mean, it's the whole thing, you know, and having been through this myself running for Senate, like, you would watch these stories that the media runs with about you, and you're like, who the hell are these people talking about? Oh, they're talking about me. It's all just a conjured up bullshit lie, and it's for political gain. And it disgusts me because Pete has little kids. And to this day, everything that I went through on my Senate race, and I'm not even talking about me, but my kids still look that stuff up on their phone because they have questions about it to this day. They were younger back then, but they still care about it today. So this stuff sticks with your kids for a long time, man. I just think these politicians are just the worst, bro. They're just the worst.
And don't forget, you know, you mentioned that Lloyd Austin, you know, went MIA for 4 weeks. Don't forget, he needed a waiver. He needed a waiver to get confirmed because they pulled him off of a Raytheon board. He was literally, I mean, he was violating the rules and sitting on a board of a defense contractor, and they pull him off the board and make him Secretary of Defense and have to sign a waiver. That's the one thing I love about Pete Hegseth. He was not a Me Too, you know, politician officer, aka a general officer. He was a major. And he has the best intent of the war fighters. He's got their intentions at heart, and that's why I'm behind Pete Hegseth 100%.
I mean, we need that. We need people. I mean, I'm tired of the same old, Brian. Like, I am so tired of these generals, and it really is this merry-go-round. Like they'll come out of they'll be a general, and whether or general, admiral, whatever, they'll grant some defense contract to say Raytheon or Lockheed Martin. And when they retire, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin will bring them onto the board because when they were a general, they grant this defense contract, and it's one big corrupt merry-go-round. And it's these very same people who are part of the defense industrial complex that get us into all these wars, because the more wars we get into, the profits of these companies go up. But the problem is that the war fighters suffer for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
And I'm like completely fine with an outsider giving it a go, because all the same experts got us into Iraq, Afghanistan, and all these other proxy wars for the vast majority of my lifetime. And I'm just so sick of it, man.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
So, okay. So let's pivot to everything that's happening with January 6th. Did you see? I mean, the Democrats have been melting down about over Trump pardoning these January 6ers. It's been absolutely insane. And many of these Democrats, like Jamie Raskin and Adam Schiff, some of the most vocal opponents of the January 6th pardons, have all received presumptive pardons themselves. Yet when they go on, do these interviews, no members of the media ever seem to mention that. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, did you see her outside the elevator in Congress? She was asked this question about January 6th. I want to let you listen to the sound and then respond, get your sense of how Marjorie Taylor Greene handled this, because I think it's pretty good. Check us out.
Come to the Capitol or doing tours or any meetings here.
Is this all you really talking about, is the J6ers that have been pardoned?
Yeah.
Okay, are you going to talk about the Biden family that got pardoned? No?
I haven't.
Oh, okay, what about the rapers and killers and murderers that Joe Biden pardoned? There are tons of them. Is that a focus at all?
Well, I'm asking about J6.
I know that's what you're asking. I know that's what you're asking about, and I'm not doing this. This insane place up here and all of y'all's obsession with January 6th is absurd. Everybody outside of here is sick and fucking tired of it. I'm serious. And so Joe Biden pardons all these murderers and rapists and disgusting people, and then everybody up here has got their panties in a wad because J6ers got pardoned. Like people that walk through open doors. A lot of them walk through open doors. That's it. But everybody here is like, J6. Seriously.
But you've been so outspoken this year.
Yes, I have. And they're pardoned. And thank God, I hope they go live their lives and can reassemble something back together, because they have suffered enough. Go do a story on all the Antifa BLM people that never served time. Over 95% of them, seriously. Think about that. And go do a story on these cities that BLM burned to the ground and they never built back. They raised all that money on ActBlue and they never built those communities back.
You don't think it's a fair question to ask you because you've been so outspoken.
It is nauseating. I've seen all the Democrat-run networks ad nauseum about January 6th, and they just can't get over themselves, but they don't give a shit about real Americans.
They just created a select committee to investigate January 6th, so it's not like Republicans aren't talking about this.
No, but it was your question. Are you gonna have J6ers come in? Are you gonna give them tours? Like, I'm so sick of you people and all this crap. I really am.
The reason why I asked that is because other people have said that, and so I assumed you would be one of those people that would also be having tours. Just because I know you're close to some of the people.
Because you're assuming. You know, the problem is you people never gave me a fair shot to be.
So I watched this last night and I was like, I wish every member of Congress was like that, because January 6th, straight up, not an insurrection, it was a mostly peaceful protest. What our government, the Department of Justice, the Biden Department of Justice, the FBI, I think even CIA assets were on the ground that day. What our own government did to 1,500 Americans, and I've said this before, Brian, and I'll say it again. If you're outraged about the blanket pardons for 1,500 January 6ers, and you're not outraged that our government locked up 1,500 Americans for protesting, I got nothing for you. To me, I've never seen or experienced anything like that sort of treatment in my life. Our Department of Justice going after Americans like that. And few people, Brian, have done more for January 6ers than you. And I mean that. you've used your show, and done a whole, like, how many episodes have you done inside January 6th? You're shining a light on the horrific treatment of these people. So give me a sense of where you're at with these pardons and what we should know, what we should be aware of.
Well, so first and foremost, to what Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying right there, the J6ers, these people are going to prison over misdemeanors for 2, 3, 4 years, which is absolutely unheard of. Normally, it doesn't even result in a physical arrest. It's just a written arrest and a fine and pay this and you're done. But these guys are going, and now here's the thing. The J6ers that were all pardoned, they're all convicted, right? They had their day in court, a completely weaponized court up in DC, every single one of them. They've had their day in court. We know what they did or what the government says that they did and all that. All those J6 select committee people that were pardoned, we have no idea the extent of what they did. What happens if Barry Loudermilk's new committee to investigate J6 goes in there and finds out that the whole thing was plotted by them and they're pardoned from that? That is insane to me.
Wow. I didn't even consider that.
We don't know the extent of what the J6 committee did. We know Liz Cheney coached witnesses. We know she colluded with Alyssa Farr Griffin and Cassidy Hutchinson to get her to fire her counsel, to take on her own counsel. We know all this stuff, but we don't know who the J6 pipe bomber is. That is going to be a massive, massive expose into how deep this actually goes. Because if that was a federal agent, which a lot of people believe it was, then this sure looks like it was a setup by someone in Congress.
Well, okay, so help break this down for me. You're talking about the J6 committee and their preemptive pardons, and you raised a really good point, because the J6 committee, so they charged all these people, say they had these misdemeanors. They used this enhanced 1512C charge of obstruction of an official proceeding, which was historically tied to Enron, essentially executives like burning documents prior to an investigation. And so they used this 1512C charge to enhance these misdemeanors to federal sentences, where they were throwing these misdemeanor charges in jail for years. Some of these people were in solitary confinement for over a year, I think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Jake Lang, 900 days. 900 days in solitaire.
That's okay. Tell me about who's 900. Tell me about this.
So Jake Lang, he's the founder of Blessed.news, and he was he had contraband. He would smuggle phones in to be able to do interviews and stuff like that. And he had no problem. He was not convicted of anything. 1,467 days in prison without a trial. That's unheard of. That's unheard of.
How many days in prison?
1,467 days in prison without a trial. Jake Lang.
I was in Afghanistan 485 days. Just for people who are listening and watching, that was 16 months. So How many days? Over 1,400?
1,400, 4 years, 4 birthdays, 4 anniversaries, 4 Christmases, 4 years. And now the 900 days in solitaire wasn't consecutive, but he would go in the hole for 2 weeks. He'd come out, they'd catch him with a phone. He'd go back in the hole for 2 weeks. And
2 weeks in solitary confinement is hell on earth. It
is solitary confinement is one of the worst forms of torture that there is. And he did 900 days in solitaire.
How is this even possible?
This is why there's going to be massive implications for everything that they did. And I can only hope that we get to the bottom of what really took place on J6, who orchestrated it. I don't know, Sean. And we just pardoned all those people. So,
I know. So I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, well, so what the committee did was essentially by destroying evidence and destroying documents is obstruction of an official proceeding. Like, they themselves are the ones that are guilty of 1512C to me. And so now I feel like I followed January 6th pretty damn close, man. And I had no idea about that.
Yep.
Tell me about it. You got other stories of people like that on January 6th that have been locked up like that?
I mean, all of them, when you hear them, I mean, on Inside J6, I interview people that were in prison for misdemeanors that are being celled up with murderers and gang members. And these are people that should have been in a prison camp, and instead they're in medium security federal prisons where, and to their credit, all of these J6ers. So overwhelmingly, a lot of the J6ers say that when they were in prison, they were kind of like a protected class amongst the inmates. The inmates were not rough with them. They were compassionate towards them. They understood. They thought it was bullshit. Excuse me. They thought it was BS that they were.
Hey, we encourage that. There's no
Okay.
there's no swear jars here. This is you do what
Well,
you
they thought
do.
they thought it was bullshit that they were in there, and a lot of these people would come out and talk about how they were able to convert these prisoners that were in there to Christianity, to to teach them about our republic and civics and our Constitution and all that stuff. So they made the best of what they had. But yeah, these are people that are going to prison for misdemeanors and being put in with the worst of the worst people in our penitentiaries. And yeah, I mean, Jake Lang is by far the worst story that I've heard in terms of an abuse.
So Trump pardons all these people, and for the most part, I mean, the pardons are still ongoing, and I think that's a good thing. But some of the people in these DC gulags aren't released right away, right? Have you heard anything about this? Like, what can you tell us about that? I all I know is I've seen Senator Mike Lee saying, "Wait a second, appears to be true. These people aren't being released despite a pardon." Like, clearly some of these DC Democrats who are in charge of these prison facilities are just thumbing their nose at President Trump.
So according to Larry Brock, who is I believe he was a colonel in the Air Force, he was also sent to prison over misdemeanors. I believe there's still 10 J6ers that have not yet been pardoned and released. Jeremy Brown is the one that I've been drawing the most attention to. Jeremy Brown is a 20-year Green Beret Master Sergeant. He would, retired as a Green Beret, did, 20 years of exemplary service, no problems whatsoever. And he, not only is he not been released yet, he's not going to be released. He's not included in the pardons because he's still facing, or he has a federal conviction in the state of Florida, a federal crime, but in the state of Florida for gun charges after they raided his home and found 2 firearms that were illegal firearms and 2 frag grenades. Now, this is a case, Sean, that's near and dear to my heart because I was the only national journalist that was in the courtroom covering this trial from day one. And I can tell you that what they did to Jeremy Brown is absolutely insane. Jeremy Brown.
Yeah. Tell us the entire story from the beginning. Like, yeah, you said Jeremy Brown, Master Sergeant, former Green Beret, served our country honorably.
Right. So he was approached in December of 2020 by the FBI. They showed up at his house. This is before J6, of course, before Trump had even announced to go to DC on January 6th. And the FBI showed up at his house and had asked him if he would become a confidential human source for an operation in January, which he believes to be believed to be January 6th. And he met with them twice, and both times he recorded the conversation between them. This is available online. You can it's I think it's whoisjeremybrown.com. You can actually listen to the whole conversation.
Wait, and so the feds approached this guy prior to Trump even announcing anything on January 6th, and the feds kind of already had an inkling that there would be something on January 6th?
Exactly. And so Jeremy Brown denied it. And he said, I'm going to go up there. Somebody had asked him if he would be private security, like act as a security guard. Now, he was a new member of the Oath Keepers group. And so he goes up there as security. He was nonviolent. He never went inside of the Capitol. He was there with somebody that was supposed to speak at the event. So it was a permitted event. So as far as he knows, he was lawfully allowed to be there. And then he ends up coming home. And after he saw all the crap that went down with the J6ers, he decided, holy crap, that conversation I had with the FBI is really significant now. I'm going to put this out there. And so he put the video out there and said, folks, they might have been recruiting confidential human sources for this event.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And so after he did that, they raided his house in September of 2021 in Tampa, Florida. They raid his house, a joint terrorism task force and the FBI. They show up and they turn off. He's a Green Beret, right? Very secure-minded person, intelligent, highly intelligent individual. He's got 14 security cameras around his house. They shut all of them off for the raid, and then they keep him off the whole time that they're searching his house. The warrant that they obtained was based on 2 misdemeanors in DC, and that authorized them somehow to raid his house in Florida. They used a magistrate.
What were the misdemeanors in DC? The freaking protest was permitted.
Trespassing.
So the FBI raids his home with guns over trespassing misdemeanors?
over trespassing misdemeanors. Like they wouldn't even arrest you for that, but they're raiding his home in Florida for that. Yep. So
and
they raid
nothing. There's nothing. That's it. That's insane. That is insane to me.
2 misdemeanor charges. They raid his home. He's got an RV on his property, right? They cut the cameras. They show up, and as they're going through his RV, all of a sudden they call out that there's explosives in the RV, and they clear the whole scene. Everybody except for one bomb technician from the Tampa Bay Police Department, I think, or Hillsborough County Sheriff, maybe, and an FBI agent. And they stay behind. They take pictures of the grenades and everything else. And then they take them back to detonate live grenades. They also go through his house. They find two rifles in there. One is a 410 shotgun. That's a family heirloom. It was his grandfather's. It was handed down to his brother. His brother committed suicide in 2019. And he had it in a box of miscellaneous junk that he had gotten from his brother. And his brother had sawed off the stock on the 410. So he cut the shoulder mount part of it off, which makes it a sawed off shotgun, a short barreled. It's not a short barreled. I don't think it was the barrel. So they find that, and then they find a short barreled rifle, like an AR-15 with a less than 16-inch barrel, something he carried as a Green Beret every single day.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremy owns those 2 things. When he went to trial, he said, yeah, I'm guilty of those 2 things. I had them. I don't think it's against the law. I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. It should not be against the law, but I have them. The grenades, he adamantly swears that those grenades were not his. So here's let me walk you through the trial. So he goes to trial in Tampa. And like I said, his attorney argues during the opening statement, we're going to show you that the FBI planted evidence against my client. He owns the shotgun and the rifle, but he says that the frag grenades were not were planted. They were planted. He did not have those frag grenades in his flak jacket, in the grenade pouches in his flak jacket. They found the FBI when they did forensics on the grenades. You know how when we were deployed, we would wrap duct tape around our grenades to keep the spoon from popping off?
Yes.
Well, they went through the spoon and they found dog fibers, dog hairs, human hairs, textile fibers, DNA and fingerprints. Not one shred of forensic evidence matched Jeremy Brown, his girlfriend, anybody in his, that was living in his household. None of his pets, none of the textile fibers from his carpet, his clothes, none of that. They tried everything they could to pin those fibers, that evidence on Jeremy Brown, and they could not. And, Sean, I mean, we're pretty smart individuals. Jeremy is probably smarter than both of us. Green Berets are highly intelligent people. He knew, Jeremy Brown, there's this woman, Kathy, that is good friends with him. And she was with Jeremy Brown that morning. And he said, I think the FBI is coming to my house today. I think they're going to come in and go through my stuff today, because he had gotten a phone call earlier asking if he was going to be home. If he knew the FBI was coming, do you think there's any chance in hell he would leave 2 fragmentation grenades in his RV, in his flak jacket on the couch?
No.
There's no way.
No way.
But they seem to believe that. Now, here's where it gets crazy. So during the trial, they're presenting all this evidence about the grenades, and they present the I think it's called the trace report, which is the history of where the lot of grenades has been. So they track grenades not by individual serial numbers, but by
lot number.
40 or 50,000 grenades, and they move them around, and this lot checks in here, this lot checks in here.
Yep.
Well, they originated in 1989. They went to Germany at the end of the first Desert Storm War. They end up making their way into Afghanistan and Iraq on a couple different occasions. And they use that to say, well, Jeremy Brown was a Green Beret who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and therefore he took the grenades home from Afghanistan or Iraq. You've been deployed in a combat zone. What's it like going through customs?
It would be impossible. It would. I mean, I can't. I don't know how the hell you could ever do that. Your everything that you have is searched. Everything. And they're like way over the top. You're not even supposed to bring back a box full of dirt, because there could be microbes in the dirt from another country that they don't. I mean, seriously, that's how paranoid they are. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
They make you take every piece
everything
of everything out, and they lay it out. you might be able to get away with like a round. You might be able to maybe somehow get around. They have dogs that come, explosive smelling dogs that come and check all your stuff.
Yeah. And there were guys that would like hollow out a 50 cal or something. They weren't even supposed to do that. Would hollow out a 50 cal and try to bring that home. Even that was like, these were dummy rounds. Even that was not acceptable.
Yep. And so they alluded to and said that he brought this, these grenades back. And it was insane. The last place that they were located in the trace report, the most recent place that they were located was a black site in Kentucky. So think, the 3-letter agencies that don't want us to know what's going on. That's the last place that they were checked in at, is a black site in Kentucky. So we do believe that those grenades were planted. No evidence ever matched it. And here's the other thing that kind of takes away the credibility of the FBI. They also charged him with a CD. That had classified information. They said he was holding classified information. Four counts for this. In the initial run through of the scene in the RV, when they did the evidence documentation and everything, the photographer and the woman, the staff specialist that goes through and documents everything the photographer takes pictures of, never mentioned the classified CD. In fact, if you look at the evidence chain of custody, the receipt that they give you for evidence that they took, the CD isn't mentioned until the very last page, all by itself, like it was added in there. Everything's kind of in chronological order. This was found in the RV. Okay, now the house, shed. And then on the back, there's a CD that was found in the RV. And the only picture that exists of it is a small little picture of the corner of the CD under a piece of paper that you have no idea what the hell that is under there. Could have been a CD, could have been a credit card, could have been anything.
What?
And so they charge him with this. Then the evidence that they put in, they say, well, we took it out and we documented it. So they took a picture of it on a table. The grain in the table didn't match any of the furniture in Jeremy Brown's house. None of it.
What?
I'm not even done yet. Like, I haven't even gotten to the worst part yet.
I can't believe these are grenades. If they're your grenades, you're handling them. I mean, with the tape on them, there would be some forensic evidence that pointed to him or anybody else in his household, his animals, anybody, but none.
Amen. I mean, duct tape is like the stickiest thing in the world. You breathe on it. Yeah. So he ended up getting found not guilty of the CD, which to me is like really crazy. Like the jury believed that he can't possibly put the CD like that. They planted the CD essentially is what the jury said, not guilty. But they couldn't fathom that the FBI would plant grenades, I guess, to try and incriminate Jeremy. Here's the last thing that he was charged with that just blows my mind because he is entirely innocent of this. They also charged him with having a classified document in his possession. And this document's really significant. If I don't know if you can play that clip that I sent you on X.
Oh, shoot. I don't know. Let me see. I
can share my screen. I have it.
Yeah. Share your screen. Screen.
Before we get into that, let's just talk about what this document was. So Jeremy Brown was flying back from Afghanistan after the Bo Bergdahl rescue. His team was part of the team.
Yeah, remember for folks listening, like remember Bo Bergdahl like snuck off his base, and I mean my unit was there. Like all operations stopped to look for this guy. Just walks off his base and tries to join the Taliban. Taliban end up capturing him forever. For a very long time, but go ahead.
5 years.
5 years.
And they lost guys in that rescue.
Trying to find him.
Yeah, they lost guys in that. So on his way back to the States, he's filling out a trip report, and he's not on a SIPR computer. He doesn't have a classified computer. He's got just a normal laptop, and so he's filling out the trip report, which is a classified document, on the way back. When he gets back, he filled the document out in a way that it was a template, basically. So it didn't have any classified information in it. So when a name would come up, instead of putting the classified identifier, like, because it's not, they don't write the name, they write like a number, and then you can go and look up that number to see who that person is for secrecy. He didn't put any of that information in this document whatsoever. And throughout the whole trial, when the U.S. attorney would present a witness to talk about classified documents and the significance of them, the only question that Jeremy's attorney would ever ask is, do you know if this was a draft document or a real classified document? And they would say, well, it doesn't matter if it's a draft document or not, it's classified. And so Jeremy took the stand in his own trial, criminal trial. That's unheard of. It doesn't happen often that you take the stand. And Jeremy explained this was not a classified document. It was a template with fake information in it. Therefore, it can't be classified. If it's fake, it cannot be classified. And then when I got back to the States and I had a SIPR computer, a secure computer, I uploaded and inserted the classified information and sent it up. And that was that. And so this is, you get back from deployment, you want to go out and have beers with your buddies and see your girlfriend, right? Yeah. So he didn't want to sit there and do paperwork for 2 or 3 hours. So he did it on the 12-hour flight home. And they found him guilty of that.
What?
Yeah. It wasn't a classified document. And they found him guilty of that. Now, Jeremy, I did an interview with Jeremy. I've done several interviews with him, but in this one particular interview, he drops some pretty crazy information. Let me pull my screen up right here, and I'm going to share with you guys this.
Oh, I got it. Let me see.
Hold on. That's not it. It's okay. There it is. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to add it to the stage.
All right. So this was about a year ago on my SitRep podcast with Alpha.
And the reality is that document is nothing more than the equivalent of the concert ticket stub showing that I was there, because that document is linked to something much more devastating to the United States government than Roosevelt himself, and that is active treason committed by the Obama administration.
Whoa.
So, I apologize for the quality there, but, Jeremy's forced to do these phone calls and these interviews from a prison cell with a, phone that they provide. But according to Jeremy, that document that they said was classified, the actual classified version of that has information on that shows acts of treason by the Obama administration regarding the Bo Bergdahl mission. And, I don't know if they're aware of this and that's why they're doing what they're doing to Jeremy Brown. I have no idea, but I've never seen anything like this.
Well, all of this because the FBI asked him to be a confidential informant. Jeremy says no, attends a protest on January 6th. Protest has a permit. And then Jeremy says, well, holy shit, the FBI was asking me to be a confidential informant for an operation in January. This could be the operation. And then says, hey, everybody look at this. Releases these audio tapes, I assume, or some sort of tape that he had with the FBI's conversation. The FBI raids his home with a full SWAT team because of some trespassing citations that he got up in DC in an entirely different state. They raid him. I mean, this is just, and so I guess, what do they just want to embarrass this guy? That what is the motive of the FBI? This guy released these recordings and embarrassed them, and so they're going to get their pound of flesh. Like, what is it, Brian? What do you think? I mean, I know we're just speculating, and what do you think is going on here?
I think that's exactly it. I think the FBI has been weaponized so much so it's an organization now where, and this doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing bad at the lower levels, but all they want to do is get promoted. They want to move up in the ranks. And
we've heard this. I mean, we have Steve Friend on, who is like a whistleblower, and he's like, that's exactly what he tells us too. These people like and I don't know who the interim director of the FBI is, but Steve was telling me he's a careerist, has almost no tactical experience, no investigative experience, like spent almost all of his time in DC just climbing a ladder. And then now this is the guy that's the interim guy in charge prior to Cash's confirmation.
Yep. Well, and it's not just the FBI, it's the U.S. attorneys as well, because these are, low-line prosecutors for the U.S. attorney's office. And if they can't say, no, I'm not taking this case. If the case is charged and it's assigned to them, they got to take the case. And if they go in there and they get their ass kicked in the courtroom, it's going to look really bad on their career if they lose. So they do everything they can to manipulate the jury in order to get a conviction out of it. And that's why when they brought the trace reports for Jeremy Brown's grenades, they didn't give them the dates. They just gave them the locations that they were. No dates. So they didn't say these grenades were in Afghanistan on May 12th, 2008. They just said they were in Afghanistan, generalized. You know, when they played, and this was a key. They played the first phone call that Jeremy had with his girlfriend when he went to prison, the very first phone call. And he said, "How bad is it?" And she said, "Well, they took this, they took the grenades." And then they go on. And Jeremy and the U.S. attorney said, "Well, because he wasn't shocked there that they took grenades, like what grenades? Then that's an admission of guilt." Now, the jury actually, when they were deliberating, they came back out and asked to hear that specific phone call. Now, what Jeremy says is they cut that phone call down to just, a minute or 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it was. 25 minutes into the conversation, his girlfriend says, yes, they found the grenades and they had to live detonate them. And he says, what do you mean they had to live detonate them? They're just because he has smoke grenades and airsoft grenades and like
interesting.
So he didn't realize when she said grenades, she didn't realize he was talking about M67 frag grenades.
Yeah, right.
Who thinks that?
Nobody thinks that. It could be a paint grenade, for Christ's sake.
Right. And so they didn't play the part 25 minutes in where she says, yeah, they were M67 frag grenades. And he's like, what the hell? I don't have any frag grenades. Like, where did those come from? They don't play that part.
Like, I got so many, the live chat is just lighting up. Like, Rich 724 said, by the way, thank you for the Rumble rant tips, everybody. I'll thank you at the end of the show, each individually. But Rich 724 said the FBI made an example of him to send a message to any other FBI asset at 1-6 to keep your mouth shut. And holy shit, like that's like, can you imagine all the press that January 6th has gotten? Now all these preemptive pardons are and Trump pardons 1,500 of them. The wheels are coming off this January 6th fake narrative that we've been fed for so long. And so at some level, like these confidential informants are going to start saying, well, wait, this was all a lie. I got to speak up about this. Something's not right. But then when you see what they did to this, to Brown, who the hell would risk that?
Exactly. And that's a lot of the reason I think that they're going after him so hard. Not to mention, if he does actually have something on the Obama administration, there's going to come a time, especially now after what they did to him, where he's going to be like, you know what, screw this. The gloves are coming off. I'm going to lay this out there.
So Laura Logan put out today, like, January 6th defendant Jeremy Brown called his girlfriend at 4:16 a.m. to tell her he was being moved. No one's heard from him since. So as of now, his attorney and his family has no idea where he is. His cellmate, another J6 defendant, was also told he was being moved. And then she says the White House needs to order marshals to release these people now. What do you know anything about this? Was he moved?
So I spoke to his girlfriend this morning as well. They said at 5:15 he was moved. She knew last night they were going to move him because they took his temperature, and I guess that's like them preparing.
Why? Why'd they move him?
Good question. So he had two cases. He had the Florida case where they found the weapons, right? Fruit of the poison tree, misdemeanor raid. You go through his house, whatever you find there. And by the way, Sean, listen to this shit. The warrant that they had for his house was just a general warrant. Normally you get a warrant served against you and they say, we're here to get your phone, your computer, this, and this. When they showed up there and Tylene, his girlfriend, has this on film and said, what are you guys here looking for? And they said, I don't know. We'll know when we find it. Over a misdemeanor. Your Fourth Amendment is completely gone at this point. If they can justify, by the way, using a magistrate judge, which is not an Article 3 judge. It is not a constitutional judge.
I don't understand how this conviction can stand with all of these things taken into consideration. Like, how did they get a warrant from a magistrate?
Magistrates can sign off on warrants, which to me is a gross injustice against the Constitution. If you're going to take away somebody's rights, you should have to be a constitutional judge, and that is a.
Well, I don't understand how you can take away somebody's rights without a jury of your peers. Isn't that what's set forth? And like, how do you revoke somebody's constitutional right without a jury of your peers? And I guess what they would say is that, like, well, like the trial comes later. Like, you don't get constitutional rights until we investigate. I mean, this is insane to me. Insane to me.
Absolutely.
So what can we do? Do you have a sense of President Trump tracking this case?
We think he is. President Trump told Brown's mother a long time ago that he'll be pardoned. But again, in the Florida case, and so going back to what I was saying earlier, he had two trials. He had a trial in D.C. for the misdemeanors, and then he had the case in Florida. He was already convicted in Florida, so he's been in prison. He's been in prison the whole time.
How long is his prison sentence, by the way?
I want to say it's 7 years.
What?
Yeah, 7 years. 7 years. Yeah.
For what? For what?
For two grenades, the two rifles, and the classified document.
Did he appeal this?
Yes, he is appealing it. And he's basing his appeal on Bruin versus New York State, saying that, short-barreled rifles have been a historically permissible under the Constitution and the Founding Fathers' original intentions because of a weapon called the blunderbuss, which is a short-barreled rifle from the Revolution War era. And so I think his appeal is actually really important to the Second Amendment because the NFA on its face is unconstitutional, especially given Chevron deference, the Bruin decision, which basically says that all Second Amendment claims have to be looked at in the context of our nation's founding, which, by the way, that's Bruin was actually used in Oklahoma with a guy that was arrested for having a firearm and having marijuana. And Bruin was used and upheld, by the way, in the U.S. Court of Appeals. It was upheld saying that, yes, in historical context of the Second Amendment, having possession of a drug is not a disqualifier from owning a firearm. And so this guy was, held up to that. But he is challenging it under Bruin.
So it's going to a Florida appellate court?
No. Well, I don't know if the appeals court.
Federal charge, right? This is a federal charge?
I think the appeals court for the Southern District would be like I want to say it's in Georgia, but I don't quote me on that.
Where's DeSantis on this? Is this a federal charge or these state charges?
So it is a federal charge, but DeSantis probably should have intervened when the FBI showed up to raid somebody's home using a joint terrorism task force. That's the most disgusting thing is they weaponize municipal cops, your local sheriff. They weaponize these deputies by deputizing them as federal agents under the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And I mean, if you're a beat cop and the feds come to you and they're like, "Hey, you want to be a fed? You want to do the cool stuff that we get to do? Join our Joint Terrorism Task Force." And then they utilize it against their own countrymen, their own citizens. It's crazy.
So what can we do, Brian? What can our audience do? What's the best way we can help?
Well, first and foremost, most important, we got to get him out, man. I don't know who needs to hear this. President Trump, he was not allowed to make a J6 argument in the Tampa case. They were not allowed to bring up January 6th at all.
Why? What? Why?
Exactly. Why?
Well, what was the determination? Like, didn't the judge issue a determination? Like, what was the reason? Do we know?
There was like a tit for tat where like you give me this, I'll give you that. And I don't remember exactly what it was that they said they wouldn't bring up, but Jeremy's an open book. I mean, he took the stand in his own defense, which waives your Fifth Amendment rights. Once you take the stand, they can ask you anything and you can't lie. Jeremy, he knows what he's doing. So that they conceded anything to keep January 6th out of there. He wasn't happy about this, the evidence, he was never allowed to talk to the confidential human sources that ratted him out. He wasn't allowed to the classified document. He was given 1 hour with that document to build his case and defend himself. He was given 1 hour with the document. I mean, it's just absurd. It's like fighting a fight with both hands tied behind your back.
I can't even believe that it happened. I can't. So we get them out, but what can people do? Can they call their member of Congress? Can they call their senator? Like advocate for them on social media? Like, what can we do?
Well, I mean, we definitely need to, get in touch with your senator and your representative, your federal representatives. You definitely need to, I've been trying like hell to get everything out on social media as much as possible. Hopefully big accounts start picking this up. Laura Logan's talking about it. Where the hell the media is, but where the hell has the media been on all this? They don't care, Sean. I mean, I told you I was the only national journalist in the courtroom for this trial. I have been since December of 2022. I have been trying like hell to get people to pay attention to Jeremy Brown's case. And thankfully, now that he wasn't granted the pardon and everybody's like, oh, the pardons. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's not everybody. And then they start hearing about what took place in this case. I mean, I haven't even gotten into some of the things like the manipulation of words that they used, trying to bring up old people he served with that said they were looking at porn on computers and like this ridiculous stuff. I haven't even gotten into
his character.
Yep, exactly. You know, they brought him up on the stand and they said, oh, we have a recording where you said I could lie my ass off and they'd love me for it, meaning the jury would love me for it. And Jeremy was like, whoa, 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 that's not what I said. Play the whole clip. And he said, I could go up there and lie my ass off and the jury would love me for it, but that's not what I want to do. I want to go with the truth. I want them to hear the truth and up to them.
Oh my
that's
God.
What you want to know. The worst part of that, Sean, is the lawyer got punched in the mouth with that. The U.S. attorney got punched in the mouth with that when Jeremy responded with that. And they turned around and used the same exact statement in their closing arguments on the last go round. So they didn't get to strike that from the record and they didn't get to defend it in the closing arguments. So the last thing the jury heard was Jeremy Brown saying I could lie my ass off and the jury would love me for it. They're disgusting. They are disgusting people.
It's sick. It's sickening to me, man. It's sickening. So man, you've been so generous with your time. I usually our show, we've gone over time, but so we know what our marching orders are now. Where can people find you? How can they support your work? Subscribe to your podcast? What can we do?
So right down there is my X handle. You can share out all the posts I'm putting up on Jeremy Brown. Share them out. I'm going to put that video clip up there. If you guys didn't get to hear it completely, you can do that there. You can also follow me at rumble.com/CanCon. And I'm also on Badlands Media and I write for the Gateway Pundit.
Awesome. Brian, man, thank you for being so gracious with your time and looping us in on this. This is critically important that we get this right, man. So thank you for coming on, brother.
Absolutely. No one gets left behind. And thank you for bringing me on your platform to do this, Sean.
Man, no one gets left behind, Brian. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, sir.
All right. See you, Brian. Yeah, that's Brian Lupo. Make sure you subscribe to him. Make sure you follow him listen to his podcast on Badland Media. He writes awesome stuff for the Gateway Pundit. Few people have done more to help our ailing January Sixers than Brian. And boy, we've got to get this right. Okay, so we're over time here. I know that. Let me tell you about My Patriot Supply. We've all seen the headlines. Cyber attacks on our power grids, drones in the sky, violent attacks on everyday Americans. The ugly truth is no leader, no system can protect you from everything. And the last thing I want is to be standing in line, depending upon help that might not ever come. And when the crisis hits, food is always the first casualty. Everyone needs it, and panic buying makes things worse. That's why I've made sure my family is prepared with My Patriot Supply. Their 4-week emergency food kit gives you the nutrition you need to stay strong in a crisis. With 2,000 calories a day, 100% of your daily value of 12 essential vitamins and minerals, this kit keeps you going when every meal matters. Right now, $50 off their 4-week food kit. All you have to do, preparewithvnn.com. That's preparewithvnn.com to grab yours. Don't put this off. Now's the time to prepare. That is preparewithvnn.com. Get your 4-week food kit today. Yeah, folks, continue to pray for these January Sixers who have just been the treatment that they've endured at the hands of a vengeful government has been horrific. And we can't allow this kind of stuff to happen. And so I want to thank some people with the Rumble Rants. Rich724 says, the Geneva Convention prohibits solitary confinement. Absolutely right. Thank you for the Rumble Rant tip. Myron, please continue advocating for J6ers and their families. Thank you, Sean and CanCon. Well, no, thank you all for the Rumble Rants tips. Rich724 again had the great point about the FBI made an example of him to send a message to any other FBI asset at 1-6 to keep your mouth shut. I totally agree with that. Boston guy. Boston is an OG of the battle crew, and Boston said, for a basement heater next to the kitty litter box under your desk. We love you, Commander Melanie. Yeah, because I could see Commander Melanie going apoplectic right now. Don't worry, battle crew. The house is clean. The litter box is clean. I know that she would be thinking that. And G. Fontes, you regularly tip in the live chat. Thank you, my friend. And Steph, very great insight. Great guest, Sean. No soldier should endure that injustice. We will get behind him. Thank you all. You all are the best. Yeah, Bill, we need to pop red smoke on this one. I couldn't agree more. This is egregious on so many levels. I'm so glad that we brought Brian on to talk about this, because I'm telling you, this guy has just done so much for our January 6ers. I'm so grateful to Brian for all of his hard work, but we got to keep working hard. So tomorrow, speaking of Brian's, tomorrow is Wright night. We got Brian Dean Wright locked in for tomorrow. We've got so much to talk about. Trump's first week in the books by the time Brian Dean Wright comes on. So stick with Battleground Live for tomorrow, and that's it for Battleground Live tonight. God bless you all, folks, and God bless this amazing country that we call home. Take care, good night, and I will see you on Right Night tomorrow.